Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 21 of the I Just Want This Done Divorce podcast. I'm your host, Raiford Palmer, and with me, as always, Rahul Iyer. What's happening, Rahul?
Hey, how are you?
Awesome. Thank you. So we got a jam-packed episode today. We're going to talk about some fresh celebrity divorce news. We've got Big Brother folks getting divorced. We've got PGA stars getting divorced. We've got rappers getting divorced. We're talking about Hinge and dating apps. We've also going to be talking about domestic violence a little bit and orders of protection. So a little serious stuff we're wrapping in bacon with all the interesting celeb divorce stuff. We've got some stuff we want to talk about with orders of protection, or also called restraining orders. So without further ado, cue the music and let's get ready to party. Okay, so in celebrity divorce news, we are talking about Rory McIlroy. Those of you who may not follow golf, Rory McIlroy is a huge golf star. He is currently at the PGA Championship as we record this episode. Currently, he is doing well at the championship, which people are sort of surprised because he just announced filing for divorce a few days ago. So the big news is, this is from TMZ. Rory McIlroy's divorce clearly is not affecting his golf game. He's lit up his first round at the championship, and I'm quoting the story. He's hit the course for the first time since he filed for divorce several days ago now from Erica Stoll, and showed no signs whatsoever of being off his game. So I guess good on him. He logged 6 total birdies through 18 holes. I used to caddy, and 1 birdie. I'd feel great about a birdie, not 6 in 18 holes. So, but he's a pro, so you got that. So the manager said in a statement on Tuesday that Rory wants to make this difficult time as respectful and amicable as possible. Good on him for being cool about it and staying focused. One of the things that we always talk to clients about is trying to keep your eye on the ball. It's easy to get locked up and emotional and sort of messed up in your divorce and hunker down and not focus. And it can really damage your career and your relationships with other people. So it's important to stay healthy, exercise, eat right, and continue doing your normal life activities. So I guess good on Rory for doing that. We don't know any details about the divorce. As they come out, we always will talk about them if they're interesting and relevant to the show. There's really not much more about this one. We just wanted to broach the topic because the one thing that was interesting was he's a cool customer and he's playing well, and golf is a tough game to play under the best circumstances, and your emotions can definitely get in the way. My dad has called me at times the manic depressive golfer because if I score well, I love the game of golf. If I'm not playing well, I hate the game of golf, which is probably not unusual. But then I get mad and I just play worse. So I don't play often enough to really make a difference. But anyway, so let's move on. And you've got an interesting story about Sacha Baron Cohen, right?
Yes.
So what's going on with Baron Cohen here, Sacha Cohen?
Yeah, well, formerly known for his roles as Borat.
Very nice.
Exactly. That should actually be one of the sound clips that we have, in your soundboard there. Very nice.
You like? I'll get that.
How much?
Right. Exactly.
So he's getting divorced from Isla Fisher, long-time couple. I think they were together for 20 years and been married for 13. They have some children, and they announced that they're getting divorced and they're separating.
Is this in the U.S., Rahul, or is this like UK or something?
This is definitely international. I don't know if it's in the UK or Australia. And they got married in 2010, but met in 2001. So, I mean, really 2001 before getting engaged in 2004. So they've been together for 20 years, but even more together since 2001. So like 23 years.
Oh, so it's in the UK. I just picked up, just chiming in, Daily Mail, credit to dailymail.com. We do accept sponsorships, Daily Mail. Anyway, Isla Fisher contacted UK's most fearsome divorce lawyer 2 years ago before split from Sacha Baron Cohen. Yeah, I guess.
Interesting. So it's a wild comic.
Fiona Shackleton, who worked for Sir Paul McCartney and Princes Charles and Andrew in 2022.
Huh.
By the way, Baroness Fiona Shackleton, who charges 550 pounds per hour, which is like $10,000 an hour in dog dollars or pesos or something. No, I'm joking.
Oh my gosh.
In Amerikansky dollars, probably $750 an hour, and was the legal expert involved in Paul McCartney's 24 million pound split from Heather Mills.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
didn't we have an episode recently about another superstar of UK divorce law?
Yeah, who screwed up that case, and they got divorced and the client didn't want it.
I didn't mean to get divorced. You got me divorced too fast. So anyway, back to these folks here. When we get more information, we'll pass it along. We don't really have too many details about the nitty-gritties of the divorce, how the estate, custody, so on and so forth. All this will be resolved. So when we find out, we'll let you know.
Just a couple details. 3 kids. He's 52, 40 million pound estimated estate. So, and doesn't look like a prenup. You know what we do with that?
We want prenup. We want prenup.
Yeah, he wants prenup. He wishes he had prenup. I'm guessing, maybe we're wrong. There's no comment of one. Most celebs have them, but they might have been together before he got huge. We like to find what's relevant and interesting in these stories from our perspective. And, we like to talk about prenups, and when these celebs do it right and they get things settled and they don't have World War III, we applaud them for that. And that's a kind of a role model for the rest of us. Now, you've got a story also. We got another celeb story. Chance the Rapper, Chicago native, right?
That's right. Chicago celeb artist known as Chance the Rapper. It's a Chicago native. They announced that they're getting divorced after 5 years of marriage. He's married to Kirsten Corley, and they had what seems to be the trend these days is a joint statement on Instagram stories. That's usually how these things get done. That's what actually I think Sacha Baron Cohen and Isla Fisher also did, was a joint story on IG. But they say here, after a period of separation, the two of us have arrived at a decision to part ways. We came to this decision amicably and with gratitude for the time spent together. They've got 2 children. They asked for privacy, as they all do. So They got married in Newport Beach, California in March of 2019, but the civil ceremony was on December 27th of 2018 in Chicago.
Got it.
And so to be determined. Again, not sure what is all in play here. Obviously, a Chicago divorce means, you have your, what is formerly known as custody, but they call it allocation of parental responsibilities. You have the division of the assets and the estate. And so this should be interesting. We'll see what comes out. We'll let you know anything that's public record here.
Yeah, we actually curious to see if we could find any court records. And so far, as of the recording in this in mid-May, there's nothing we could find in the public court record. More than likely, they're going to try to mediate this. What's very popular among firms in Chicago now is what's called assisted mediation. Rahul, this is a good opportunity to briefly explain assisted mediation.
Would essentially be where the two parties decide in lieu of litigation or starting off a case with a bang, you want to go and talk to a neutral who is the mediator here. They're completely independent and they're selected jointly by the two attorneys to mediate the dispute. There's a lot of different mediators with a lot of different strengths and skill sets. And so you'll pick one that you believe would be best for the parties, the temperament, everything that they're looking for, the way they do it, and someone with experience to deal with these sort of things so that they can help them navigate how to best resolve the disputes between them. And so an attorney-assisted mediation basically is when the attorneys are in mediation with the parties and the neutral versus just the two parties doing it themselves with the neutral without any attorney presence at the actual mediation. So it's usually either half a day or full day or 3/4 of a day, depending on everybody's preference. There's some diminishing returns there after a few hours as far as I'm concerned.
We've said before 2 hours is really the max that anybody should be in session. I know people disagree with me. I don't know how anybody stays alert and makes good decisions after 2 hours of talking. You just get exhausted.
Basically, the point of it all is that it's usually not just one day. It's usually multiple days, depending on all the issues that are presented. You can break it up into chunks. You can talk about custody certain days, finances other days, support another day, as you and the parties will exchange information mutually, and then they'll come up with spreadsheets and various other things. You can engage additional professionals to be part of this process, where you can have like a financial expert help divide a business or run a valuation, or you can have a therapist or another parenting person, psychologist involved to kind of help with these issues and come up with creative solutions. So that's really the purpose of this, is to engage in creativity, to resolve amicably without airing out your grievances in court and having a judge who can only do what the law provides for, which is not always necessarily very creative in times. So you kind of step away from that to do what is best for the two of you. So
the mediator is not a judge. Well, a lot of them are retired judges in Cook County, and usually the bigger downtown firms choose those folks as the mediators in these assisted mediations because they've known them for a long time. And several of them are people with a lot of skill and have done a lot of divorce work. So they have a good frame of reference for how these cases should turn out. So they tend to go to those folks, and they're not cheap by the hour, but I'd say they're probably worth it overall in terms of helping get cases resolved. And they have like a certain degree of gravitas, a weightiness when they're talking to their parties. And the lawyers are able to tell their clients, look, this judge used to do some of the big time litigation in the courthouse. It's likely that what they say is realistic about outcomes in this case. And if you end up litigating this and go to court, it's likely the range of outcomes will be pretty much what this person says. So they've got the credibility and the chops for the high-end divorcing person, the person with a lot on the line, to have some faith in what these folks are saying when they're talking about options. We firmly believe mediation sessions should be restricted to 2 hours for a number of reasons. People disagree with me, but that's okay. And also, in my opinion, I believe collaborative is more effective than assisted mediation. In my opinion, if two collaborative lawyers are trained properly and understand how collaborative works, there's no reason to have a mediator. That's been my experience.
And let me just add in here for those who might not know, when Rafe said collaborative, it doesn't mean that the two of you are working on it collaboratively.
Right.
There's actually a portion of the law that is devoted specifically for a collaborative divorce, which is a type of divorce that does not involve filing the petition to start the case, but rather resolving the case with the help of neutrals, participation agreements, and the like, which I think, Rafe, we can probably talk about now or another day, I guess, depending on how you want to deal with that.
Well, I'll briefly mention. So I discuss collaborative arbitration and mediation and litigation in Chapter 7 of my book, I Just Want This Done. And I compare and contrast them and do the pros and cons. And collaborative was invented by a guy named Stu Webb. I've talked about this on my social media before, in Minnesota in the late 90s. He was a divorce lawyer, been around a long time. He was frustrated by the classic punch each other in the face style of litigation, and he wanted to try to work out deals. And he said to a friend, he wrote a letter that you can still find on the internet where he basically said, "This is stupid. We know how most of these cases should turn out. Why don't we just sit down and try to work this out rather than wasting all this time and money in court and running around like fools, in court every day?" And he was kind of exhausted from it all. And he said, "Why don't we just meet and have discussions, and not the traditional settlement conversation, but let's really meet with an eye towards finding the middle of the Venn diagram. Where do our interests overlap? Can we get it done reasonably?" So it was really a breakthrough, and he fused mediation concepts with traditional negotiation, and it's been great. I learned how to do collaborative in 2008. I was originally a skeptic. I wasn't a believer. I was a trial lawyer, and I did settle cases when they should be settled. But I thought collaborative was kind of just a different label for the same old thing, and it's not. The training is unique. The mediation mindset is special. The idea of ground rules to keep people from arguing with each other and instead laying out their concerns and their goals, and everybody listening to everybody else and being productive and not just beating each other up about the past. Mm-hmm. It's not an argument, it's a discussion. And you try to reach common ground and reach an acceptable result. So that's what makes it special. And I talk about it at much more length in the book, and we can probably talk about more detail in other episodes. But we favor collaborative over assisted mediation. Mediation, we think, can be very useful for things. I think is especially useful for parenting issues because it's not so much legal stuff as it is preference issues where you need to hash through your desires and what you think is right for your kids. Mediation without attorney advice gets challenging when you're dealing with more complex legal issues. You're dealing with ways of doing maintenance that might be unique, or valuing a business, or you disagree about the value of a business. If there's stark disagreements about things, you'll likely not bridge those gaps in collaboration. So in a collaborative case, if somebody wants sole custody, for example, and the other person wants sole custody, you're not going to collaborate that away. You're just polarized.
That's a coin flip.
Yeah. And then a judge needs to decide. So part of it is the lawyer sorting out, okay, is this appropriate for collaborative? What method of dispute resolution is best for this case? That's our job when we're consulting with a client.
And that is also a skill set to know and feel out what is the best course of action here, because you don't want to have a one-trick pony, or someone who thinks litigation is the best route for any and every single divorce, or someone who says any and every single divorce should just be settled and no litigation or everything, so you'll have to know and identify what is the best strategy to approach each case to get the client and the parties the best outcome in the most efficient way possible. It doesn't have to be a zero-sum game.
Mediations, by the way, in collaborative cases, the things that the parties say are confidential, so they can't later be used against them. And the documents they offer are not. That stuff is available in discovery later. But anything that's said is confidential and protected, and you can't be questioned about it later. That encourages people to be open in the process. So as celebrities, typically you'll hear that they mediate their cases. I suspect some of them are resolved collaboratively also. A mediation can be a great solution to these cases. But anyway, I know what I wanted to get to was, in my experience, I've been doing divorce for over 20 years. I've been a lawyer for almost 30 years, which is hard to believe. But mediation and collaborative were quite rare when I started doing this and got increasingly common by around 2010, been trending upwards since then. What I have noticed that I thought was interesting and kind of unique was in Cook County, collaborative was not as popular for a long time, and alternative dispute resolution was not as popular. Court action was by far the number one way people were resolving things. And I could get into my guess is why that is. Part of it is just old habits die hard, and that's what lawyers are comfortable with, because that's what, law school spends 98% of their time training lawyers how to handle court. And they have to, each law school has 1 or 2 classes on alternative dispute resolution, and you take 4 times 3, so you take 4 classes, 8 times 3, 24 classes or so total in law school or more, and 1 or 2 of them are on ADR. And the rest are all trial and appellate based. So part of it's our education, part of it's old habits die hard, and also part of it is a concern to 2 things. Make the client feel like you're fighting for them. That's one thing. That's sort of subconscious, maybe pressure. And court sort of feels like you're trying to go for the most, rather than the word settle bothers some people. Well, I don't want to settle. That sounds like I'm giving up,
Right. Psychologically.
Right. And so unfortunately, there is a prejudice, I think, against negotiated results in these cases. When a lawyer that I respect a lot, a guy named Jim Lenihan, who's now retired, was an awesome collaborative lawyer. He always said, what is acceptable to you? Is this result acceptable? Usually a range of results is acceptable, especially considering the cost it would take to go all the way to a trial and your potential downsides. When you work in the cost benefit analysis, then a pretty wide range of acceptable outcomes becomes open to you. Well, lawyers don't usually talk like that to clients. That's not common. Really, they're not trained in it. I'm not here to bash lawyers, that's for sure. I'm married to one, and I like what I do, and I still believe it's a noble profession. And I love working with lawyers and respect lawyers. It's just they're trained a certain way, and then there's client pressure. That is a real thing too. And so educating the client about why these things will work for them and why they're not settling is important. And also, like we said, knowing when it's time to fight and knowing when it's time to negotiate. And we always talk about evaluate, negotiate, litigate. 3-step process. Litigate should be the last resort. So you shouldn't start swinging until you're sure you have to. And the obvious ones right off the bat.
Right.
There's abuse or violence or some tough situation, somebody swipes money, you got to take action. But in many cases, there's no need to come out of the gate like that. So anyway, what the final punchline I want to say is the Cook County court system has gotten so messed up due to delays in that system that cases take 3 to 5 years to get resolved through trial. And even the lawyers that resorted to this and also made some substantial money doing that and were comfortable with it, their clients put pressure on them, and their clients thought this is taking way too long. And they said, I don't want to spend 3 to 5 years in this process. So here comes mediation as a much faster way to resolve these cases. And recently arbitration, which I think is probably a great solution for a lot of people where they do have a dispute that needs some adjudication, but the court system is too slow. Think of arbitration as court junior or sort of speedy court, like a drive-through
Speedy court, or you have your own private judge.
Yeah, it's a better way to say it, a private judge with an accelerated, streamlined process. Kind of new. Some lawyers are getting certified as arbitrators, and I think it's a cool option for people who are opposed on an issue and can't find common ground. You can arbitrate an issue, and the arbitrator will act like a judge and make a decision. Yeah. And the people agree to be bound.
And I was just going to add, when you said the training from law school, how disproportionate that is, you also have the issue of glamour, right? Nobody wants to say it's not glamorous. You don't see it on TV. You're not watching Harvey Specter on Suits sit down at a mediation and mediate away in his day. He's in court fighting, making deals, doing cool, litigation and, one-upping people in court. And that's what's glamorous. People don't want to be known as, I had this sexy mediation yesterday. No, it's like I had this great trial. Let me tell you all about it. So I think it's just that sort of psychological or, I guess, stigma.
Exactly right. And lawyers like to say they're on a trial. It sounds important and fancy and that they're smart because they're trial lawyers. And I've tried cases, I've tried juries and bench trials and all kinds of things. And when it's right for the client, it's fine. Most times it's not right for the client. And we're not tarring everybody with the brush here, but we're just trying to explain why the situation is the way it is in general. The other thing too is it's a whole lot easier. People expect court because that's what they were raised with. So the clients come in and they're probably not very educated. More people actually are coming in knowing or having heard about mediation and collaboration, but still it's in the minority of people. So they come in, they've seen court on TV. they're emotional and stuff, and they just kind of expect it. And you don't, as a lawyer, it doesn't need any explaining. Well, we're going to file in court, and the client goes, okay, that they know that's the deal. So it's like when you go to a restaurant, they don't need to explain what a filet is, but it's not some creative thing on the menu where you got to have them explain what the heck it is. You're just giving them a steak, and everybody knows what that is. So there's sort of a comfort level in selling that. So anyway, we digress on this, but it's an interesting topic, and it plays into what we're talking about here. So Rahul, we're going to talk now about our dating apps and the future of dating. We always like to talk about that kind of stuff. So what do you have on AI dating?
Yeah, absolutely. Whitney Wolfe Herd, who is the founder and executive chair of Bumble, said that the dating app wants to use AI to quote unquote create more healthy and equitable relationships. The premise of this whole thing is basically that there are all these AI-powered dating assistants that are coming out, such as YourMove.ai or simulated chatbots like Volar. Basically, the point of this is they're saying we'll be trained to sort of mimic you, so you have an electronic version of yourself as the AI. An NBC News article, will link it in the notes here, but it's like this dystopian future, like they have in Black Mirror, which is a Netflix show. And so your assistant, your AI, will talk to like 600 other AIs like that, snap of a finger, and then we'll say, don't waste your time with all these people. These are the ones for you to sort of get into a more detailed discussion with. They're trying to change it because it's becoming dull. Others have started to feel disillusioned by the whole dating and these dating apps. And so they want to use AI to teach people how to date better and create more healthy, equitable relationships, not wasting time with people who don't have, the synchronicity that you might have. And so I guess these dating assistants are generative AI. So they're taught to mimic people. And that's really what they're used for. So she also said that they're rebranding, and they said we will not be a dating app in a few years. Dating will be a component, but we'll be a true human connection platform. And that is, you can meet anybody you want. Interesting. We'll see. AI is the trend now, so everything has to have AI in it now all of a sudden.
So Bumble is going to pivot to being like a friend app?
Yeah, I think right now there's a Bumble friend option as well, where you can just go there, or Bumble Meet or whatever, which is a platonic sort of arm of the app. And so I do know of people who move to new cities, and what they do is they get on Bumble just to find friends. They're like, I don't know anybody here. I'm going to go on and I'm going to try it. But then, a lot of them, they might have other motivations besides friendship.
The unique twist about Bumble when it came out was the women can only approach the men, right? That was the theory?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. But didn't you tell me, was it you who was telling me now anybody can text anybody on Bumble? So that
you got me.
Somebody was telling me that. So it's like that whole novelty is gone now. Or maybe that's something they're rolling out.
Yeah, it could be. So along those lines, I heard about this interesting story a couple of days ago. Hinge is testing a new feature. It's an unanswered message limit to reduce burnout. So they introduced a hidden words feature, which if people comment on your pictures, I guess, you can mask words and emojis you don't like, I guess. So this other feature, this one is real interesting to me because I can see this being an issue. The feature will limit the number of unanswered messages users have in their queue. Those with 8 or more matches waiting for them to respond won't be able to match with anyone else until they answer one or more of those messages or end the conversation, like unmatch. Hinge will test, they call it your turn limits. And they're going to test it in the US, UK, Canada, Australia starting this month with the goal to roll it out in other markets based on feedback. And when users are getting close to the limit, they'll see a banner on top of the messages saying they're approaching the limit. When 8 or more people are waiting for an answer, you need to reply or end chats. Then you can send likes. So the idea is they don't want you to spam 30 people and then leave them hanging. So this is to prevent kind of like ghosting. If you try to join, like somebody new after you've reached your 8, you get a pop-up that says too many people are waiting for your reply. So I think that's great because otherwise there are people that are sitting out there getting spammed by people. The app is not functioning because these people are just sucking up all these folks' attention and wasting their time. So it's minimizing that ability to monopolize the app. I think that's a positive move. Kind of reflects like in real life, you can't do that, right? You can't call 100 people, ring their phone, and then just leave them hanging, put them on read in real life. So there are physical limits to meeting people in IRL, in physical world. And the app is trying to put some social constraints on matching. And this ties into the stat you mentioned a few shows ago, where we talked about this, how women match with like 10% of the men available on a typical dating app. And I can't remember which one it was. But what's happening is the women are preferencing only this very small group of guys. And we talked about how it's like one of the issues is it's all reduced to visual, basically, because you're just seeing pictures. And women don't normally get the social cues that they otherwise would about guys. So that was that whole side story that's in another episode. The twist here is, along those lines, let's just say a female can match with 30 guys and just have them sitting there. Then all these guys are putting energy into replying and getting nothing back. And so it's making people focus. So pick, 8 is still a good number. So pick your battles, choose the matches you're interested in, and then you can actually talk with them. If you're not interested in talking to them, close it down, unmatch and move on. And that makes the app experience better for a majority of users.
Right. And it takes away from the whole gaming component, right? Where people just think, this is a game for me. I'd like to see how many people I can match with. I'd like to just sit here and just surf and see all the potential options out there, because it's sort of like, it's like the TikTok culture. You're sort of just on TikTok doom scrolling, and you're like, this is good for hours. And so I think they want to eliminate the whole doom scrolling on Hinge by saying, let me just go through in matches and like, dislike.
Well, yeah. And if your goal is Hinge is trying to maintain subscriptions and not have churn, which is what they call when somebody unsubscribes from a SaaS product, like software product like this, you want the largest number of users to have a good experience, And if your app's declining in users, you're failing everybody ultimately, because you're diminishing the dating pool online and you're creating a bad experience for a large number of users, and people just stop using your app. So this is a pretty clever solution, I think, on the part of the Hinge people. So interesting.
And like you said, 8 is not a low number. As somebody, neither one of us, I can say it probably has never used a dating app before, but not without knowing anything about what is an appropriate number of open chats to have, I can say 8 seems like a good amount.
Right.
You don't need to be talking to more than that, as far as I'm concerned.
That's it for our show for today. Like, share, subscribe for more. I'm Raiford Palmer. That's Rahul Iyer. And we've got all the stuff in the show notes below. The way you pay us, because this is free, is to subscribe on YouTube and watch the show. Follow us on your favorite podcast player. And we love your comments and feedback on YouTube. And wherever you get your podcasts, please comment and tell your friends. We hope this is valuable for you. And one of the nice things about the show notes, by the way, is you can skip around to stuff you like to hear, things that interest you can pick out particularly. This is our 21st episode. We've got 20 other ones, so check those out too. Thanks everybody for watching and listening to the show. We're glad you're here. We appreciate it. Everybody have a good one. Take care.